What if I told you that the life-changing benefits of solo backpacking are so profound that most people don't understand why or even how it can radically transform your life, your happiness, and your overall mental well-being? And this isn't just my opinion either. After researching this topic extensively, it really does just boil down to one simple concept. Now, solo backpacking isn't as popular as group backpacking, and for a lot of good reasons, actually. You know, when you group backpack, you have the opportunity to have those shared experiences with your friends, division of labor and gear, safety in numbers. You can rely on others. So it makes a lot of sense why people go with others instead of going solo. And on the other hand, solo backpacking is just the complete opposite, right? But going solo can have a profound impact on your life for one key reason. And that reason is that you're alone, all by yourself. So in 2014, Timothy Wilson from the University of Virginia conducted a study on how people coped with being alone without any stimulus for anywhere between 6 to 15 minutes. Now, they had one option in that environment. They could electrocute themselves. And shockingly enough, a lot of the participants ended up doing just that. And that's pretty dang fascinating because the burden of being alone without any sort of stimulus was so uncomfortable, so emotionally tough, that people decided to inflict physical pain on themselves rather than just cope with the idea or the circumstances of being alone by themselves with only their thoughts. Now, quick story. When I first started backpacking, for about 10 years, I went solo. And on my very first trip, I went solo as well. I remember getting to camp and being very bored, so I decided to build a fire. And it wasn't because I was cold, it was just because I was trying to keep my mind occupied. And after building the fire, staring into the flames, a lot of emotions started to pop up. At the time, the economy was in recession, it was crashing. People were losing their jobs. I was afraid of losing my job. I had a pretty bad relationship at the time that wasn't going very well. I had an apartment that I could barely afford and I was really afraid of losing. All these emotions started to bubble up. And I remember staring into that fire and thinking and just realizing how unhappy I was with my life. You know, I had recently dropped out of college. I just began my first 40-hour-per-week job, my first full-time job. I was worried about losing all the freedom that I had before now that I had to work so much. And I remember just feeling very distraught with where I was at that particular moment. And those feelings were so heavy and so much heavier than they were just in my normal everyday life. And I just really realized like how much I was struggling and how, quite frankly, depressed I was. And the fact that I didn't really realize it until I got into the middle of the woods, until I got myself into an environment where I basically didn't have much stimulus to keep my mind occupied. This really made me realize in such a profound way just how distracted I was at my own emotional state and my own well-being. Being on that trip really made me confront so many thoughts that I had just brushed aside or pushed aside because I guess I wasn't in the right frame of mind to consider them or think about them. And the research shows that people would rather distract themselves than actually confront their own thoughts and their own opinions about themselves, which is why people decide to electrocute themselves rather than spend 6 to 15 minutes alone in a room without any sort of stimulus. I mean, that's how hard it is for people to be alone with their thoughts. That's how painful it can be for people to be alone with their thoughts. And that's pretty crazy. This is why solo backpacking is so transformative or at least it has the power to be transformative. It forces you to be with just your thoughts. Now, I know backpacking is a stimuli in of itself. I mean, you have things to think about, you're hiking, you know, your mind is occupied, but there are plenty of times when you are really just left alone with your thoughts. You're all alone by yourself. That is a very powerful experience to have, especially if it's not something you're used to having. You can use that as a tool to just grow. You know, solo backpacking isn't just about enhancing your backcountry skills. It's really a form of self-care. And I just don't think we give ourselves the opportunity to allow ourselves that self-care in the normal day-to-day life that we live. A way I like to kind of phrase it is just like, imagine this, like you're on a first date, right? And on that date, you are getting to know this person. And if you're a polite human being, you're probably asking them questions. You're trying to form an opinion about who they are. You're listening intently. If you're a good human, you're not looking at your phone. You're doing all the things to absorb all the information you're getting to form an opinion about this person. You're listening to their thoughts. And our thoughts are pretty similar to that scenario too, right? Like, we need to set the stage to listen to our person upstairs, to have the ability to process what our brain is telling us, to process our emotions, to understand ourselves. And if we don't give ourselves the opportunity to do so, if we're on a date and we're constantly looking at our phone and we're constantly distracted by the cute waitress that's walking by, or what you think is going to impress that person, or what food you're ordering, that's probably not going to be a very good first date. And the relationship between you and your emotions and your mind really needs to kind of be on the same level as that first date. You have to put the distractions down. You have to listen. You have to process. You have to realize that your mind is in itself a person. Your mind is your person. But I mentioned solo backpacking because it just has so many negative connotations to it. You know, people think it's dangerous, that you shouldn't do it, whatever the excuses are. And I'm just here to say that that's a bunch of bullshit. And when you experience that free flow of thought, of emotion, that gives you the opportunity to hopefully do something about it, right? I mean, it's not just experiencing those thoughts and going home and being like, my life sucks. It's using that as a tool to grow as a person. It's to make you realize that the changes, the structure of your current life and what you can do to better it. Or if things are all hunky-dory, you can just reflect on how great your life is. Things are just going great for you. That's fantastic. Now, if this video resonates with you, if you have any thoughts to add to this, your opinions, I would love to hear those in the comments below. Do you solo backpack? Do you like to solo backpack? Please tell me. Tell me if I'm off my rocker on this one. The data seems pretty clear though. Spending time alone is beneficial, and we just don't do it often enough. And I really do feel that backpacking is a great form of self-care. I'll see you next time.